From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 19th. We are going to be heading into the Thanksgiving holiday this week, and so because if you're only here just to watch the Weather Weeklies video and not my daily forecast videos, you won't hear me say this, but happy Thanksgiving to all of you. That, of course, is this Thursday. We're going to be turning colder at the end of the month, we think, and it should last into early December, as I put in the long-range outlook here on Friday. This is our long-range table. It's really busy here because I got some things going on in precipitation here, but the general consensus is through this period that goes all the way up to around December 3rd is largely below average up to this point, okay? Some more below average than others, and some just slightly, but it is going to be below average to end the month of November and also begin the first couple of days of December. Then I do see in here, you're going to see a moderation period where you can have temperatures maybe even slightly above average for a little bit before we go back to the end of the month and we are back down again. We start going the downward trend as we get into the past the 18th of December. We get into at least near average leading up until Christmas, and then Christmas and New Year's, I think, is a cooler than average period as well. So now we do just a 5 to 6 week lead time on purpose, because when you're doing seasonal forecasts, I said this a million times, it's really just flipping a coin. It really is. You can think you know what you're doing and convey that messaging that you know what you're doing in these seasonal forecasts, and I'm telling you, a lot of it is just flip a coin. It really is. Okay, and especially when it comes to precipitation, not necessarily departures. When we're looking at longer range, we're looking at anomalies. We're looking at temperature departures from average, precipitation departures from average. We're identifying wetter periods versus drier periods and warmer versus colder, not specifically to storms. So when you're going out into a longer range and you have storm signals, like we had this one showing up here at the end of the month, it's not a guarantee that it's going to hit, but there is a signal there from the ensembles or from the background state. In this case, when I put this out, there was nothing from the ensembles yet. It wasn't even in range, or not full range, but I'm seeing a signal in that time frame. Now, the signal is not as strong as it was when I did this on Friday, but I was careful not to put winter storm signal in here, because when I put winter storm signal, it means there's a pretty good shot at a winter storm for an area-wide event. This would favor the climatologically favored interior areas if it were to occur, but this might slide off to the southeast, but we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of time for that. We're talking about the 28th to 30th period. Today's only the 19th, so a lot of time to look at that period and see if there's anything there. But there are a few ensemble members still indicating that, so we're going to hold on to it just for now. But we do expect this month is going to finish slightly below average, with slightly below average rainfall, because we are way behind for the month of November. Some places have very little in the month of November as far as total precipitation. We are going to get some next week. So hopefully, and that's going to be mostly rain. Vast majority of it's going to be rain with that one. There might be another one Black Friday into Saturday next week. Maybe. We'll see. We'll cover that in the daily forecast video. I'm not really here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about is the pattern, and the long-range pattern that shows the final week of November and the beginning of December colder is in large part due to the negative East Pacific oscillation, which is currently the driver of this pattern. You have ridging coming up into the northwest U.S., or excuse me, northwest Canada and Alaska region, so that allows a cross-polar flow of cold air to come across the Arctic, down through Canada, and into the lower 48. So we're going to get a piece of that at the end of the month and the beginning of December. Now, is it going to be cold enough to snow? Maybe. It's still, you got to remember, average highs and lows are still in the 40s yet, or 40s and 50s, so it's not going to be, slightly below average. Probably won't cut it yet. You need something perfectly timed and a below average, solidly below average period. We are going to have a few of those solidly below average periods that are going to take over here in that period that I'm talking about, which is, again, Thanksgiving through first couple of days of December, but will it be timed correctly with, maybe coming at night or coming in the, when it's colder in the morning or evening, that kind of thing. That remains to be seen. And do we even get anything in that period? Now, it's not a guarantee, but we're going to continue to watch it. Now, I have been hearing a lot of stuff out here, especially on Twitter, because Twitter is the worst with this, but you have, a lot of experts out there that think they definitively know what's going to happen. Not only for December, but also the winter, and they make these very declarative statements. You can't make anything declarative in weather. It doesn't work that way, okay? It's probabilistic in nature, which means that it is a good shot that this is going to happen, but it's not a guarantee it's going to happen kind of thing. And people like to make things as, it's going to be this, and that's it. Too bad. I said so. Well, it doesn't work that way, okay? And as we get into December, I hear a lot of things, people are talking about things like, that are further down the line that aren't really relevant right now, like a stratospheric polar vortex is, are we going to have a PV split or disruption or a stretching of the PV? Who cares? Look, right now the PV. This is why I'm not talking about this. A weak versus strong polar vortex. This is what it looks like. Okay, a strong polar vortex. All the cold air is bottled up in the Arctic regions, and if you have a weaker polar vortex, the idea is that you get these cold air intrusions to the lower latitudes, or mid latitudes anyway, where we're at, and we can get these cold snaps. Okay, you don't need this necessarily in a winter to happen in order to get good snow. This is not how it works. Okay, when I say good snow, I mean decent amount of snow, not necessarily that it's a good thing. Here is the projection for the stratospheric polar vortex, and it is strong and is going to remain strong for much of the timelines here on the bottom. This starts on the 18th, the 18th of November, and goes through January 6th. There is indications that maybe once we get to the end of this, past the middle of December, it starts to decline, to get weaker. There's the mean line. It is trending downward. So yes, there could be a PV polar vortex interruption, disruption, split, stretching, whatever, that could affect January beyond. This is not going to help you in December. So if you're hearing a lot of stuff about the stratospheric polar vortex, just ignore it. It's just noise. A lot of times people use this stuff to justify their thinking, whatever their outlooks are, and say, well, this is why it's going to be warm in December. This is not why it's going to be. It's not going to be warm in December. We have December as a near average month as far as temperature is concerned. Here, actually near to slightly below average, 0 to -1. Not a blowtorch in December. So can we get off the idea of the blowtorch in December? It's not happening, okay? We are going to have a warmer period in here, slightly above average, centered on either side of the middle of the month, but then it's going to turn cooler again after the cool start. So, and it balances out, okay? I do think we have near average snowfall in the month of December, however, and snowfall looks like this in November, December. We covered this in the last couple of videos too, but it's not much in November. So if you don't have anything so far, which nobody does, right? And at least not measurable. The December, it goes up quite a bit, okay? And I do think we're going to have near average snowfall across most of the region here in the month of December. I really do. I still hold that idea. Here is what we have year to date. Again, zeros across the board, but this is where you should be. You shouldn't be at a whole lot right now. Scranton is the only exception that should have had on climatological average a couple inches of snow right here, 2.1, but it's not much. That could easily be made up in one event, and we might even have something here in the next week or two that could get you some snow here, as several of the ensembles are suggesting. I do have a storm signal. Again, I have a storm signal at the end of the month, which is going to be the 28th to 30th time frame, might even extend into early December. But you could get a couple inches of snow and make up for that pretty quickly. This is a 2-week lead on the GFS ensemble from last night, the GFS that ran last night. The other models that ran are very similar. The European model has that as well, European ensemble. So, and they're all focusing on that end of month period. There is a system coming in Tuesday that it may be at the onset of the precipitation, might have a wintry mix or maybe some flakes before it goes over to snow. Up in the higher terrain of northeast PA, that is certainly possible. But then it goes over to rain there too, and everywhere else will be just rain, much needed rainfall at that on Tuesday and Tuesday night, maybe into early Wednesday morning. Okay, that's this week. We'll cover that in the daily forecast video, however. But there is an opportunity up here in the northern areas, the climatologically favored areas, to see snow this time of year, to see something, okay, over the next 2 weeks. And this is not just the GFS ensemble that I'm showing you having this idea. They all have it. The Canadian ensemble has it. The European ensemble has it. So there is opportunities, just not a lot, okay? But you're not expecting a lot, right? You're not expecting a lot in November. Once you get into December, it goes up a little bit, but even this isn't a guarantee. I will say that I do like the idea that December is near average snowfall, however. Okay, so just be patient a little bit. I think it's one, like I've been talking about in the last couple of videos, and I'll show you that in a second. We'll get into that. First, the current observed sea surface temperatures and the change from last week. It has gone down slightly, but it's pretty much largely unchanged. And the biggest deal here is the eastern areas where we're looking at the trends. Everything in Niño 4, which is the westernmost region, is on that upward trend like this, right? Same thing in Niño 3.4, which is our most important region. It's on the upward trend. Niño 3 is kind of staying level, right? It's pretty much on an even keel there. And then Niño 1 and 2 is on a downward swing. That is the far eastern areas, and that's what we don't want to be the warmest region. And it's starting to trend away from that. As a matter of fact, since this was released last Monday, because this is every Monday this comes out, it has changed quite a bit. It is actually cooler in these 1 and 2 regions out here. Okay, again, you don't want this to be the warmer phases out here during the winter. That's not good for us, okay? You want your warmest anomalies as far as the sea surface temperatures to be out in this region closer to the international date line, and they are starting to get there, okay? Not only with the anomalies that's shown here, but also the actual sea surface temperatures. Here's what the anomaly looks like for the basin, and we have obviously solid El Nino here. It is a strong El Nino. There is no questioning that. It is a strong El Nino. It is not super. There's another westerly wind burst coming across the Pacific that may actually increase temperatures over in this region, at least slightly. But the key here is not so much how warm it gets, but rather the placement of where this is. As long as it's not the strongest out here in Niño 1 and 2, and it's more out here toward the date line, closer to the date line you get, the better. Okay, that's for convection purposes. That is for the Madden-Julian oscillation, okay, and the favorable phases that we would be in to experience that. The actual sea surface temperatures, these are actually observed. This is not a projection. Observed sea surface temperatures. The warmest blob of temperatures is out here right on either side of the international date line, which is right here. Right there. And that's a good sign. Okay, that's where you want it. You don't want it out here, okay, and it's not. It's considerably cooler out in those regions. It's still above average there, but it's considerably cooler. You want your warmest ocean heat content to be out in this area. And the reason for that is the latent heat release process pushes this ridge, or pushes the jet stream poleward, so you get ridging out in Alaska, and guess what? What goes up must come down. You get colder temperatures in our region if that's what you wanted for winter. If you want snow, if you're tired of, each of the past couple of years not looking too well. This is not for me being a proponent of it necessarily, because I know some people don't like snow, and that's fine. Like a little bit of it for my kids and stuff, but I mean, it's not that I understand. Like, I'm 47 years old. I don't like removing it anymore, but it is what it is. It is good for business, so I'm not going to totally say it's a bad thing. But that's the idea. The convection, just like think of this like Hurricane Otis, right? That happened almost exactly a week before Halloween, right? It hit Acapulco, Mexico. I'm not even saying that right, but it hit there very hard as a Category 5 hurricane, and it wasn't expected to. It just blew up out of nowhere. The reason it blew up is it took advantage of the ocean heat content en route to Acapulco, which was very warm water. So it was going over warm water to begin with. A hurricane needs 80-degree water or better to mature or continue to grow, right? Or at least maintain. Those temperatures it was bath water that it hit, okay? And the hotter the temperatures of the water gets, the more rapid it intensifies if the right conditions around it are there. You have no shear and things like that. And that was a perfect environment for it to explode because it took advantage of that very warm pool of water. Well, if your warm pool of water out here, now I'm just using that as a point of reference, or just kind of an example. If your warm pool of water out here, where do you think the best convection is going to end up being? Probably right here. And this is phase 8, phase 1, which are favorable phases in winter. Not so much in December, but once we get further into winter, these become more favorable phases. And that's why you look at a lot of El Ninos, and it's a straddling a date line like that. A lot of those bigger years had blockbuster Februaries because at that time that's ideal. That's what you want. These are where you want the phases. If this can hold over the next couple of months, where this is actually the warmest period, we could have a pretty decent amount of snow this year. Again, this is still probabilistic. This is not deterministic. I'm not telling you it's definitely going to happen that way, and we have to monitor those changes. But this certainly is a good sign early on if you are a snow lover. Here is the model projection for Menso from October yet. They have not updated this yet, but it's still expected to peak right around now or December and then start slowly declining. I do think you're going to have another westerly wind burst in the Pacific that's going to increase these temperatures from where they are right now. As long as it's not east-based, or far east-based, that's okay. We just don't want it out in Niño 1 and 2 or 3 weighted. We want it more near the international date line, which is 3.4 and Niño 4, okay? So here is what a typical paintbrush El Niño looks like. Again, extended Pacific jet stream across the southern United States, bringing in a plethora of moisture for those areas. And we will tap into some of that into the up the eastern seaboard. And again, if you have a colder regime in place when these things are happening, they're going to be snow, right? Here's what the 500 millibar forecast is on the left from the European seasonal outlook for December versus what is typical in a moderate to strong east-based El Nino, which is exactly what we're at. Probably not moderate right now, but the moderate counts as well. And that is that December, at least the first half of December, minus the first couple of days, is going to have a pattern like this. We're going to have a little bit more in the way of ridging and some warmer risks through either side of the middle month of December. But then once we get to January, this turns into a more favorable pattern. Not epically favorable, but favorable, more so than it was in December for any snow events, and a little bit more cold to work with. And by the time we get to February, it is an epic pattern. Okay, it is an epic snow pattern. If we look at the last several, I just took away the La Niñas from this chart from last week to this week, and if we look at the last, actually since 1950 of the El Niños that we've had. Again, we went through these before. But this is a strong El Nino. This is a very good winter if you are a snow lover. Same here. This was decent, not great, but decent. And this was a very good snowfall, like as far as well above average. The rest of these were not. So you're about half. Well, this one gets half credit because, again, that's 2015-2016 storm was literally one storm, and it was a massive storm in January, and that was pretty much it for winter. It was like another 4 or 5 inches besides this. So you got lucky or unlucky, however you want to look at it, for that year. Okay, so the rest of these were pretty decent snowfall years, and if you can even go into the moderate El Nino years, these two most recent ones were also very big years as far as snowfall in an El Nino. Now both of these winters that I have in a square here, and several of these others featured a lot of blocking. So another thing I've not talked about this in any of these videos yet is the quasi-biennial oscillation, because I don't want to lose my audience, but those are just winds around that change every, I think it's like every 20 or every 14 months it changes from east to west, and it alternates. It's the winds above the equator and the direction that it is. If you're in a negative quasi-biennial oscillation, it promotes more in the way of blocking potential, and these years right here we had some decent blocking. This is not something I'm talking about yet is with the NAO block, because we're not there yet. We're only in November. We're not looking at major blocking events coming forward. Okay, I think it's going to be largely EPO driven even in late December yet. Okay, I don't think we're getting into blocking until we get further into winter, and a lot of those were, if you look at these years that had really great years as far as snowfall is concerned, these were all big in February, March, right? These are all late winter big hits in those years, okay? Late winter. Even this one was later January, so you can call that's kind of like midwinter, but whatever. But you have your bigger potential is later on. It's not early on, okay? Now, that doesn't mean you can't get snow early on, but in all of these winters that are listed here, there was literally this one right here, 57-58, that featured an above average December as far as snowfall with some pretty good snow in that month. The rest of them didn't start off until later. Like you have maybe some minor stuff, like 2-3 inches here and there, whatever, that kind of stuff. Nothing huge, okay? So here's the end of November storm signal. It's there. It's not really strong, but the European model has it in my time frame that I outlined for the 28th to 30th. We'll see. A lot of the ensemble members have it sliding off to the south and east, but the ones that do hit do bring into some interior accumulating snow out of this, even if minor. It doesn't have to be a big storm necessarily, but additional signals are popping up here in December as well. If you look at this is the Euro Weeklies for the month of December as a whole, okay? Just for the month of December. We're looking at, actually this goes from November 30th to December 31st. It's a 32-day period. It's a 32-day snowfall. So if you look at these numbers here, it's not a tremendous amount of snow, but these are near average numbers, right? Near average. This is near average across the region. If you look at the average snowfall in December, Scranton Wilkes-Barre 7.7. It's 7 or 7.8, 8.4. It's pretty close. Okay. Allentown it has here at 5.9. Normal in Allentown and is 4.6, so that would actually be above. So this is the ensembles going out for a little bit and showing that for a 32-day total, we have potential for snow in December, and I think we can get near average snow in December as well. So we'll just have to continue to follow this week to week and see where we go from here. Matt and Julian oscillation is an intraseasonal patterns, which dictates things on an intraseasonal level. So this is not something you use to project long range. This only goes to this is only going to the middle of December right now, right? But we are over here entering into phase 1 right in here. It's going to hang around here, loop in phase 1, and then go right through phase 2, which is also a favorable phase for us right now, briefly into phase 3, and then the circle of death, and then right back at it again, right back like that. GFS ensemble doing the same thing, briefly into phase 3 over here, circle of death, right back at it, okay? I think the dominant convection is going to be up in these areas this year, up in those areas where it's, near closer to the international date line. That's why that El Nino is important, because of the strongest or the warmest sea surface temperatures is right there. The ocean heat content is right there near the international date line. That means you're going to have a domination in these phases out here, which are more favorable in winter for cold and snow. Now in December, they're not. Right now, I will tell you in December, this is phase 1 is a cold phase, phase 2 is a cold phase. This is phase 3 is a warm phase, and these are all torch phases. Torch. Phase 7 is a torch. Phase 8 is kind of like mildish, like slightly above average, near to slightly above, something like that. But this is what we're looking at for what the phases mean in December. So right now it doesn't mean too much because we're still early on, and it's no surprise that the biggest winters that I've highlighted over the past 70 years, since 1950, 73 years. The biggest winters within that were El Nino years were basically favoring the middle and second half of the month for those big storms. So they all started off slow except for one. So this is expected. Since we don't have, we are starting off slow here. We don't have any concrete storms necessarily to track. That's why I'm kind of being more broad on what the pattern is. Once we start getting into that, we'll get less pattern and more so intraseasonal stuff, okay? But that's where we are right now. The colder than average end to November and first several days of September. Did I say December? Wow. I put, I guess I didn't have enough. There it is. First couple days of December is what we're expecting. Then moderation. I wouldn't mind being back in September right now, actually, but that's a topic for a different day. Colder than average at end November and first several days of December, then moderation is what we're expecting after that. But again, it's not going to be a blowtorch, we don't think. Maybe a couple slightly above average days within that either side of the December period before it starts getting cooler again. 2023, 2024 winter may get off to a slower start, but still could be a decent December snowfall or two. Again, it might not be a major storm. It just could be a minor storm. You get your first couple, 1 to 3 inch snowfall, your first 2 to 4 inch snowfall. Okay, or maybe you get a couple of those. That's very likely, I think, in December. I think December is not going to be a blowtorch, and I think you're going to have the average snowfall. So the colder pattern returns after that mild moderation period I talked about in December. It is going to return around or just before the equinox, which is December 21st, and then snow chances will increase for more areas beyond that. So we're not just talking about interior at that point. You look at these the long-range signals. We're not, like a lot of times we're talking about early in the season, the climatology favored areas are up here when you get up by the up in the mountains or northern northwestern areas. But now when you get further deeper into December, I think is when your chances start pushing a little bit further south and you have those better opportunities going forward for the remainder of winter. Of course, we have the winter subscriptions available for the My Pocket Meteorologist program. That is at the address right here. Just go to our website and click on the winter weather alerts, and it'll take you to that. It is for the text alerts, which will give you timing, amounts, changeover timing, how much amounts are you getting of snow, ice, and rain, or whatever. We will break that down for you on a county level basis in the text alerts, and we also have the premium forum where we look at in more detail model. We do detailed model analysis ahead of every storm. This is where we really geek it out. It's a question and answer session, and those for those that are subscribed to it, we will interact with you as far as any questions you may have with regard to pattern or any specific storms. So we will do that here in the premium forum. If you want to become a part of that, click on this. Well, don't click on the link in the video here, but this is the link of where it is. Go to our homepage, EPAWAweather.com, and then winter weather alerts will be on there where you can click on that and get all the information about what the program entails, and it allows you to sign up for that as well. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 19th. Join us again next week. And again, maybe we'll be talking about some additional signals at that time, or something at least a little bit more concrete instead of speculative. Take care.